The alarm bells rang through the crystal towers of the Zephyrian capital city. Ambassador Veltar ran through the bright corridors, his blue skin glowing with worry. The news was bad. Very bad. He burst into the council chamber where 12 other Zephyrians sat around a floating table. Their faces showed the same fear he felt in his chest. Prime Minister Yaxel looked up from a glowing screen filled with red warnings. "How many worlds have we lost now?" Veltar asked, catching his breath. 7, Yaxel said quietly. "The Chromuk took 3 more systems while we slept. Our fleets tried to stop them, but they just kept coming." Defense Commander Killenth slammed his fist on the table. "This is impossible. We have the best weapons in the galaxy. Our plasma cannons can destroy asteroids. Our shields can stop anything." "Not anything," said Science Leader Morden. She moved her hands and pictures appeared above the table. They showed huge black ships that looked like insects mixed with machines. The Chromex ships heal themselves. Every time we hit them, they grow back stronger. They learn from our attacks. Veltar stared at the pictures. The Chromex ships were ugly and scary. They had parts that moved like they were alive. Some had teeth. Some had claws. All of them had weapons that glowed with evil light. "What about the other races?" asked Council Member Hexara. "The Altarians have strong fleets. The vegans have smart computers. Can't they help us?" Yaxel shook his head. "I sent messages to everyone. The Altarians say they cannot spare any ships. The vegans say this is not their problem. The Andromedans told us to handle it ourselves." The room went quiet. Outside the windows, they could see their beautiful city with its glass buildings and flying cars. Soon, the Chromek would come here too. Soon, everything would be gone. "There is one option," Veltar said slowly. Everyone turned to look at him. "One race we have not asked for help." "Who?" Killenth demanded. "The humans of Earth." The room exploded with angry voices. Killenth stood up so fast his chair fell over. "The humans? Those animals? They barely learned to fly between stars 50 years ago. They fight with metal bullets and chemical explosives. They are savages." "Exactly," Veltar said. "They are savages. But they win their wars." Morden brought up new pictures. These showed human soldiers and ships. The soldiers looked small and weak compared to other races. Their ships were ugly gray boxes with no style. Their weapons looked simple and crude. "Look at their history," Veltar continued. "They have been fighting wars for thousands of years. They never stop fighting. Even when they make peace, they keep making new weapons. Other races have one military. Humans have armies, navies, air forces, space forces, and things called marines. But their technology is so primitive," Hexara said. "They still use gunpowder weapons. They fight with knives and clubs. They even fight with their bare hands." "Yes," Veltar agreed. "And they win." When was the last time humans lost a war to another species? No one could answer. The humans had fought 3 border wars with other races since joining the galaxy. They had won all 3. Yaxel rubbed his forehead with both hands. "The other races already think we are weak for asking for help. If we ask the humans, they will think we are desperate." "We are desperate," Veltar said simply. The council voted. It was close. 7 votes to ask the humans for help. 6 votes against. Veltar felt sick to his stomach. They were really going to do this. 2 days later, the message went out across human space. It was simple and honest. "We are the Zephyrian Republic. Our worlds are dying to an enemy called the Chromuk. We need military help. We can pay with technology and resources. Please answer if you can help us." On Earth, in a big gray building called the Pentagon, Admiral Jack Morrison read the alien message. He was a big man with gray hair and scars on his hands from old battles. He had been waiting for something like this. His aide, Colonel Lisa Hayes, came into his office with a folder full of papers. "Sir, the President wants to know if we can help these aliens." Morrison looked at the pictures. Of chromic ships. They were big and scary, but he had seen scary things before. "What do we know about these Zephyrians?" "They are about 7 feet tall, blue skin, very smart. They have better technology than us in most ways. Their ships are faster and their weapons are stronger. But they have never fought a real war." "Never?" "Fought a real war?" Morrison raised an eyebrow. "No, sir. For the last 1,000 years, they have settled all problems by talking. When they do fight, it is very polite. They follow rules. They try not to hurt anyone too much." Morrison laughed. It was not a nice laugh. "And now they are fighting something that doesn't follow rules." "Yes, sir. The Chromach are like a disease. They eat everything. They turn planets into factories to make more ships. They don't negotiate. They don't surrender. They just consume." Morrison stood up and walked to the window. He could see soldiers training in the yard below. Young men and women learning how to kill efficiently. "Get me Captain Rick Santos of the U.S. Defiance. Tell him to prepare the 3rd Expeditionary Fleet for immediate deployment." "Sir, should we tell the Zephyrians what to expect?" Morrison smiled coldly. "No, let it be a surprise. These aliens asked for help from humans. They're about to learn what that really means." 3 hours later, Captain Rick Santos stood on the bridge of his warship. The U.S. Defiance was not beautiful like alien ships. It was built for fighting. Thick armor, big guns, and a crew that knew how to use them. His second-in-command, Commander Amy Walsh, came up beside him. "Captain, we have orders to help the Zephyrians fight something called the Chromach. Intelligence says these things are tough." "How tough?" Santos asked. "They regenerate damage. They adapt to enemy weapons. They learn from every battle. The Zephyrians can't hurt them." Santos grinned. He was a short man with dark hair and quick eyes. He had fought pirates, rebels, and alien raiders. He was not worried about some bugs in space. "Commander, prep the special weapons. The ones the other races think are too mean to use." "Nuclear missiles, sir." "Nuclear missiles, kinetic kill vehicles, chemical weapons, biological agents, and anything else that goes boom. If these Chromach things want to fight dirty, we'll show them what dirty really looks like." The human fleet left Earth orbit 12 hours later. 50 ships carrying 20,000 soldiers, Marines, and Spacers. They were going to save the Zephyrians from the Chromach. They had no idea they would end up scaring the entire galaxy. Captain Rick Santos stood on the bridge of the U.S. Defiance as bright lights filled the main screen. The human fleet had just dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Zephyrian territory. Around him, 50 human warships moved into battle formation. "Sir, we're getting a signal from the Zephyrian fleet," said Lieutenant Tom Baker at the communications station. "Put it through," Santos ordered. The hologram of Ambassador Veltar appeared on the bridge. The tall blue alien looked relieved but also worried. "Captain Santos, thank you for coming so quickly. We are grateful for your help." Santos nodded. "Where are these Chromach?" "We're ready to fight. That is what concerns me," Veltar said. "Your ships are so small compared to ours. And our sensors show you have no energy shields, no plasma weapons. How do you plan to fight creatures that our advanced technology cannot stop?" Commander Amy Walsh looked up from her station. "Captain, the Zephyrian ships are huge. Their smallest cruiser is 3 times bigger than our biggest battleship." Santos smiled. "Size isn't everything, Ambassador. Show us the enemy." The display changed to show the Chromach fleet. Santos had seen pictures, but seeing them move was different. The ships looked like nightmares made real, black metal mixed with green flesh. Weapons that grew out of the hull like tumors. Ships that breathed and pulsed like living things. "They are beautiful in their own way," Veltar said sadly. But they are death itself. Watch. The display showed a battle from last week. Zephyrian ships fired bright blue plasma beams at a chromic cruiser. The beams hit and burned through the armor, but even as they watched, the holes began to close. New metal and flesh grew to replace what was destroyed. "It heals itself," Chief Engineer Pete Johnson said in amazement. "The whole ship is like one big wound that keeps healing." "Worse than that," Veltar explained. "They learn. Every time we hit them with plasma, they adapt. Now our weapons barely scratch them." Santos studied the tactical display. The Chromac ships moved in perfect coordination, like a school of fish or a flock of birds. But these fish had teeth and claws and weapons that could crack planets. "Do they have any weaknesses?" Santos asked. "None that we have found. They are immune to our weapons, our computer viruses, even our boarding parties. We sent our best warriors onto their ships. We never heard from them again. What about their tactics? Do they always fight the same way?" Veltar nodded. "Always. They close to medium range and use their bioweapons. They heal faster than we can damage them. They wear us down until we retreat or die." Santos turned to his crew. "You heard the alien. They adapt to energy weapons. They learn from every battle. They expect us to fight like everyone else." He grinned. "Too bad we're not everyone else. Walsh, prep the kinetic rounds. Johnson, warm up the chemical weapons." "Sir." Veltar looked confused. "What are kinetic rounds?" "Bullets," Santos said. "Simply, really big bullets." The first battle came 3 hours later. A Chromac scouting force of 12 ships found the combined fleet near a gas giant. The Zephyrian ships immediately opened fire with their plasma weapons, filling space with bright blue light. The Chromac ships absorbed the damage and began to heal. Their bioweapons returned fire, sending streams of acid and living metal at the Zephyrian fleet. 2 alien cruisers took hits and began to melt. "You see?" Veltar said desperately. "They cannot be stopped. We must retreat." "Not yet," Santos said calmly. "Walsh, fire kinetic rounds at the lead Chromac ship." The U's Defiance shuddered as its main guns fired. But instead of energy beams, solid tungsten rods shot out at incredible speed. Each rod was as long as a school bus and moving at 30 kilometers per second. The Chromac ship never saw them coming. The first rod punched through its hull like a spear through paper. The second rod hit a different section and tore it apart. The third rod went all the way through the ship and came out the other side. That the Chromac ship did not heal. It could not heal. There was nothing left to heal. "Impossible," Veltar whispered. "How did you do that?" "Simple physics," Santos replied. "Mass times velocity equals dead alien." Johnson launched the firebombs. The human ships fired again. This time they launched missiles filled with chemicals that burned very hot. When the missiles hit the Chromac ships, they exploded into clouds of flame that stuck to everything. The biomechanical ships tried to heal, but the chemicals kept burning. Their living parts screamed in frequencies that hurt to hear. Their metal parts melted and flowed like water. "What are those weapons?" Veltar asked in horror. "Napalm," Santos said. "We use it to clear forests. Works pretty well on space bugs, too." The battle was over in 10 minutes. 12 Chromac ships were destroyed. The human fleet had taken no damage. The Zephyrian fleet just floated there, trying to understand what they had seen. "Your weapons are so primitive," Veltar said slowly. "No energy shields, no plasma, just metal and chemicals. How are they so effective?" Santos leaned back in his chair. "Ambassador, your people have been fighting with fancy weapons for so long. You forgot that simple things work too. The Chromac adapted to fight energy weapons. They never learned to fight rocks and fire." "But this is barbaric," Veltar protested. "Civilized races do not use such crude methods." "Did civilized races stop the Chromac from eating your worlds?" Santos asked. Veltar had no answer. Commander Walsh was reading reports from the other human ships. "Captain, we're picking up a massive Chromac fleet heading this way. 40 ships, including some really big ones." "How big?" Santos asked. "Bigger than anything we've seen. Our computers are calling them dreadnoughts." Santos nodded. "Then we'll need bigger weapons. Johnson, prep the nuclear torpedoes." "Nuclear weapons?" Veltar looked shocked. "But those are banned by the Galactic Peace Treaty. No civilized race uses nuclear weapons in space." "Good thing we're not civilized," Santos said. "Walsh, signal the fleet. Tell them to prepare for Operation Sledgehammer." As the human ships moved into position, Santos watched the Chromac fleet approaching on the display. They were coming to crush the small human force with overwhelming numbers. They had no idea what they were about to face. "Ambassador," Santos said quietly, "you might want to move your ships back. Things are about to get very uncivilized." Veltar stared at the human captain. For the first time since calling Earth for help, he wondered if they had made a terrible mistake. These humans were not like other races. They fought without rules, without mercy, without limits. They were going to win, but at what cost? Deep in space, Queen Admiral Zirkuth felt the death of her scouts through the neural link that connected all Chromac ships. The pain was sharp and unexpected. For 3,000 years she had led the hive across the galaxy. No enemy had ever hurt them like this. "Analyze the battle data," she commanded through the biomechanical interface in her ship's brain center. Her body was more machine than flesh now, tubes and wires connecting her to the vast Chromac fleet. The humans used primitive kinetic weapons. Reported Bio-Coordinator Haskell, simple metal projectiles. "Our adaptive armor cannot counter basic mass and velocity." Zirkuth pulsed with anger. "Impossible. We have faced every type of weapon in the galaxy. Energy beams, plasma cannons, quantum disruptors. How can mere chunks of metal defeat us?" They also use chemical combustion weapons. Fire that burns our living components and prevents regeneration. "Then adapt faster," Zirkuth commanded. "Deploy the Terror-class dreadnoughts. If these humans want to fight like primitives, we will show them the futility of such methods." Meanwhile, on the U.S. Defiance, Captain Rick Santos was getting bad news from Earth. Admiral Morrison's face filled the communication screen, and he did not look happy. "Rick, we have a problem. The Zephyrians are complaining about our methods. They say using chemical weapons and kinetic bombardment is barbaric by galactic standards." Santos looked at the casualty reports on his desk. Humanity had saved 3 Zephyrian worlds, but they had lost 6 ships and over 2,000 crew members. Good people who died fighting monsters. "Admiral, we didn't ask for galactic standards when they begged us for help. We fight the way we know how." "I know that, son. But the other alien races are getting nervous." The Altarians filed a formal complaint. "The vegans are talking about trade sanctions. They're saying we're too violent." Santos laughed bitterly. "Too violent for who?" The Zephyrians were about to be extinct. Where were these other races when worlds were being consumed? Commander Amy Walsh entered the bridge with urgent intelligence reports. "Captain, our scouts have detected a massive Chromac fleet heading for the Zephyrian capital system. 47 ships, including 3 of those bio-dreadnoughts. The Zephyrians want us to fall back and defend only their homeworld." "Negative," Santos replied firmly. "We don't fight defensive wars. Prep the fleet for Operation Bushwhacker." Dr. Helen Carter, the fleet's alien expert, had been studying captured Chromac tissue for weeks. She came to the bridge with disturbing news. "Captain, I've figured out how these creatures work. They're not separate ships. They're all part of one giant mind." "Explain," Santos ordered. "Every Chromac ship, every weapon, every creature is connected through quantum biological links. They share information instantly across their entire force. That's why they adapt so quickly. When one ship learns something, They all learn it. Santos studied the tactical display showing the approaching enemy fleet. Then we need to break their network. How do we do that? Dr. Carter smiled grimly. Electromagnetic pulse. A big enough EMP burst would fry their quantum biological connections. But it would take massive power. Santos turned to Chief Engineer Pete Johnson. Pete, how many nuclear warheads do we have? About 200, sir. Why? Because we're going to use them all at once. Right in the middle of their fleet. The plan was dangerous and had never been tried before. The human fleet would use their faster ships to get close to the Cromac formation, deploy a concentrated nuclear device, and escape before it exploded. The electromagnetic pulse would disable the enemy network. Ambassador Veltar was horrified when he heard the plan. This is madness, Captain Santos. Nuclear weapons are banned by 17 different galactic treaties. The radiation could contaminate entire star systems. Ambassador, Santos replied coldly, your people called us for help. We never promised to fight by your rules. But the other races will never forgive this. They already think humans are too aggressive. If you use nuclear weapons, they will see you as monsters. Santos stood up from his chair. Let me tell you something about monsters, Ambassador. Monsters are creatures that eat entire worlds. Monsters are things that turn living beings into raw materials. We're not the monsters here. We're the monster hunters. The battle began at the edge of the Kepler system. The Cromac fleet was enormous, led by 3 dreadnoughts each the size of a small moon. Their biomechanical hulls pulsed with evil life, and weapons grew from their surfaces like thorns. The Zephyrian fleet took position behind the humans, their plasma weapons charging for long-range fire. But their ships were shaking. The crews were afraid. All human ships, this is Santos, the captain broadcast. We're going to punch through their center and plant our surprise package. Stay close, move fast, and don't look back. The U.S. Defiance led the charge. 50 human warships dove into the Cromac formation like fighters attacking bombers. The enemy ships were huge, but humans were fast and small and hard to hit. Cromac bioweapons fired streams of acid and living metal. Human ships took hits and kept going. The U.S. Liberty exploded when a biotorpedo ate through its hull. The U.S. Courage lost its engines, but kept firing kinetic rounds until it was destroyed. But the humans kept going. They punched deeper into the enemy formation, their guns blazing. Tungsten rods and explosive shells tore through Cromac hulls faster than they could heal. Deploy the package, Santos ordered as his ship reached the heart of the enemy fleet. A single device, about the size of a car, was ejected from the cargo bay. It contained 200 nuclear warheads wired together. All ships, maximum acceleration. Santos commanded, we have 90 seconds. The human fleet burst out of the Cromac formation like a bullet from a gun. Behind them, the nuclear device counted down to 0. The explosion was like a small star being born. Pure white light filled space for 1,000 kilometers. The electromagnetic pulse that followed was even more devastating. Every Cromac ship went dark. Their quantum biological networks failed. Their adaptive systems crashed. For the first time in 3,000 years, Queen Admiral Zirkth could not hear the voice of the hive in her mind. Impossible, she whispered through failing biomechanical systems. How can they fight without honor, without limits? The human ships swept back through the disabled Cromac fleet. Kinetic weapons and chemical bombs finished what the EMP had started. In 30 minutes, the greatest Cromac fleet ever assembled was floating wreckage, but the victory came with a price. The other galactic races watched in horror as humans used banned weapons and brutal tactics. Fear replaced respect in their alien hearts. They had asked for humanity's help. Now they wondered if they had unleashed something even worse than the Cromac. 3 months after the Battle of Kepler's Edge, the galaxy was a very different place. The Chromac threat was gone. Queen Admiral Zirkth had retreated to the Outer Rim with what remained of her broken fleet. But new fears had taken the place of old ones. Ambassador Veltar sat in his office on the Zephyrian homeworld, reading reports that made his blood run cold. The Altarian Federation had filed 17 separate complaints against humanity. The Vegan Consortium had imposed trade sanctions. The Andromedans were demanding that Earth submit to galactic oversight. A knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," he called. Captain Rick Santos entered, looking tired but determined. The human had been staying on the Zephyrian homeworld for weeks, helping to plan defenses against any future Chromac attacks. "Ambassador," Santos said, "we need to talk. My government is getting pressure from your galactic friends." Veltar gestured. "To a chair. Please sit. I assume this is about the complaints against your methods." Santos sat down heavily. "They want us to apologize for using nuclear weapons. They want us to promise never to use chemical weapons again. They want us to follow something called the Galactic Warfare Conventions. And will you?" Veltar asked quietly. Santos stared at him for a long moment. "Ambassador, let me ask you something. When the Chromac were eating your worlds, how many of these civilized races came to help you?" "None," Veltar admitted. "When your people were dying by the millions, where were the Altarians and their fancy plasma weapons?" "They said it was not their concern." Santos leaned forward. "But now that we've solved your problem, they all have opinions about how we should have done it. Interesting timing, don't you think?" Before Veltar could answer, his communication system chimed. The face of Ambassador Kriyat of the Andromeda Federation appeared on the screen. The silver-skinned alien looked as arrogant as always. "Ambassador Veltar, I am calling to inform you that the Galactic Council has reached a decision regarding the human problem." "Problem?" Santos asked dangerously. Kriyat noticed the human for the first time. "Ah, Captain Santos. Perfect timing. The Council has decided that humanity must submit to civilized warfare protocols or face complete economic isolation. You have 72 hours to comply." Santos stood up slowly. "And if we don't?" "Then a coalition of 11 races will enforce compliance. Your species shows promise, but your methods are those of primitives. Submit to our guidance, and we will teach you proper conduct." The screen went dark. Santos and Veltar sat in silence. For a moment. 11 races, Veltar said finally. "That's the largest military coalition in galactic history." "How many ships?" Santos asked. 43 vessels. All with advanced technology that makes even our weapons look primitive. Santos smiled grimly. "Well, that should be interesting." 2 days later, Admiral Jack Morrison stood in the Pentagon briefing room, looking at intelligence reports about the approaching coalition fleet. Around the table sat the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the Secretary of Defense, and several other officials. "Sir," said General Patricia Walsh, "the coalition fleet will arrive at Earth in 18 hours. They're demanding we surrender and submit to their oversight. What's our response?" Morrison asked. Dr. Helen Carter, who had been recalled from the Zephyrian front, spoke up. "Admiral, I've been studying the coalition races for weeks. I have a proposal, but you're not going to like it. Let's hear it. I've weaponized the chromac biosamples we collected. I can create a virus that will turn their own ships against them. It would be poetic justice, really." The room went silent. Morrison stared at the scientist. "Helen, that would make us no better than the chromac themselves." "Sir, they're threatening to dictate terms to us because we don't fight pretty enough. For their tastes, are we going to let them push us around?" Morrison thought about it for a long moment. Then he shook his head. "No, we're not going to use biological weapons. But we are going to send them a message they'll never forget." 18 hours later, the coalition fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. 43 ships from 11 different races. all armed with the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. Admiral Kree had commanded the fleet from his flagship, the INV Righteousness. His officers were confident. These primitive humans would surely surrender when faced with such overwhelming force. Human vessels. Kree broadcast. This is Admiral Kree of the Galactic Coalition. You will stand down immediately and prepare to receive inspection teams. The response came from Admiral Morrison himself. Admiral Kree, this is Admiral Morrison of the United Earth Federation. Go to hell. I beg your pardon? You heard me. You want to know what makes humans dangerous? It's not our weapons or our tactics. It's our complete willingness to do whatever it takes to protect what we value. Suddenly, every communication channel in the galaxy was flooded with data. Complete files on human military capability, broadcast openly for everyone to see. Technical specifications for nuclear weapons. Battle footage from human wars. Psychological profiles showing that humans saw nothing wrong with total warfare when their survival was at stake. The files detailed thousands of years of human conflict. Wars where entire cities were burned to the ground. Weapons that could poison the air and water for generations. The complete extinction of species that humans considered threatening. Most shocking of all were the current capabilities. Biological. Weapons that could target specific alien DNA. Nanobots that could disassemble ships at the molecular level. Antimatter bombs that could crack planets in half. This is what we keep in our closets, Morrison's voice continued. This is what we're capable of when someone threatens us. You've seen what we do to enemies who threaten our allies. Now ask yourselves, what would we do to enemies who threaten us directly? The Coalition fleet commanders read the files in growing horror. These humans were not just primitive savages. They were apex predators who had taken their hunting instincts to the stars. Admiral Kree had stared at images of human soldiers who fought without fear, without mercy, without limits. He thought about his own people, who had not fought a real war in over 1,000 years. Fleet commanders, he said quietly, we are withdrawing immediately. Sir? His tactical officer asked in confusion. Look at these files. Really look at them. Do you want to fight a species that considers planetary bombardment an acceptable opening move? Do you want to face creatures who think genocide is just another military option? The Coalition fleet left Earth space without firing a single shot. Years later, Ambassador Veltar would look back on the day his people called Earth for help. The Zephyrian Republic was safe, protected by human treaties that no one dared challenge. But the galaxy had changed forever. Humans were no longer seen as primitive newcomers. They were the species you called when you needed something dead. They were the monsters that other monsters feared. We asked them for help, Veltar told his young aide, watching human patrol ships pass through Zephyrian space. And they gave us exactly what we asked for. Isn't that good, sir? The aide asked. Veltar watched the human ships disappear into hyperspace, carrying their deadly cargo to some distant conflict. I suppose it depends on your definition of good. We're alive, our worlds are safe. But we opened a door that can never be closed. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, other species were learning the same lesson the Zephyrians had discovered. When you call humans for help, you get everything that comes with them, whether you want it or not.